Good afternoon. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024, 4:30 p.m., and I'm calling the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting to order. We have a quorum present. Number 2 on the agenda is public comment and suggestions. Do we have public comment today? Alder Gisselman.
Gary Gisselman, 319 Park Avenue, Alderperson, 5th District. I just want to call your attention again this evening to the report that you're going to be hearing and talking about with regard to Riverside Park. It's been a long time in coming. Last year, a good work was being done on the park, and we see some of the results of that this evening. But also, as part of the report this evening, you're also going to be seeing some additional work that may need to be done. And I would think that for this park to be pristine, serving the public, serving the neighborhood, serving the citizens of the city of Wausau, to be as clean as possible, I would trust that you would work hard to make sure that the work that needs to be done on this park still continues. There's still some investigations that need to be done, and I would hope that this committee, as well as the city of Wausau, would take heart and look at this park and make sure that all the work that needs to be done on this park is complete. We have already progressed very well. It's been a long time in coming, but finally we're here. But I see that more work needs to be done, and I would hope that this committee agrees with that and moves forward with regard to the work that needs to be done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Number 3 on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from December 4th, 2023 meeting. I have a motion made by Alder Watson, and I'm looking for a second. Second by Lou Larson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. None are opposed. Motion passed. Number 4 on the agenda is discussion and possible action reviewing the results from the Riverside Park remediation project, presentation by REI, and I will turn that over to Jamie to forward it.
I will introduce our member from REI to give the overview of it. He's been working with Eric Lindman on this, and so I have very little information other than that, so I'm going to let you go with it.
Yeah, just quick summary of the remedial actions that were completed in 2023. 1,829.03 tons of contaminated soil was excavated and hauled to Marathon County landfill. That was both during the large July excavation and then due to one soil sample within the park showing exceedance down near the bike polo court. We did a quick small hand excavation, hoping it was just a small area. That excavation, the 2 sidewall samples continued to show exceedances, so that is one area on the lower part of the hill that's still requiring the additional investigation that was spoke of earlier. Additionally, there were 2 samples right along with a residential property that showed exceedances, and 1 additional sample that would have been part of the low spot that fed into the culvert right on the property boundary that continued to show exceedances of the direct contact standards for residential contact. Other than that, right now the DNR, the report was submitted on January 24th to DNR with a technical assistance for review fee. The DNR, I just spoke with the project manager today. They have not been able to complete a full review of that. Generally, it's 30 to 90 days for that review to be completed in their formal response. Part of our request through them, part of that fee was to make a determination on responsible party for any samples at the top of the hill that showed exceedances, as previously that was identified as an upgradient area. So that will be part of their final review and determination on potential either additional investigation in those areas or submitting responsible party letters to other parties.
So in your recommendation from this is really to wait till DNR gets us back any comments they have on this and then determines who those responsible parties are?
Yeah. So me and Eric had already spoken about For sure, there'll have to be additional investigation into the two samples that continue to show standard exceedances down in the park near the base of the hill. But with that, depending on the DNR's determination for the other sample locations near the top, potentially waiting to sample them all at the same time.
So the two that are in the park, those weren't part of the full remediation that was done?
So we had pre-sampled the outside boundary, and during the excavation, I realized there was a slightly larger gap than I was comfortable with between two of the samples on the sidewall. So I collected one after completion of the excavation. It ended up that sample showed an exceedance. We see this at sites I had just recently had in our arsenic contaminated site where it's ubiquitous contamination, but it's not consistent. So you can move 3 feet over, have an exceedance, move another 3 feet, it'll be clean, move another 3 feet, and it'll be 10 times higher than the initial sample. So there's a potential that that's partially what's being seen in the park is it's an inconsistent contamination concentration across an unknown area. So as I said, there was two other clean samples taken from that sidewall, but it just was that third sample to kind of close out any potential questions of that length, ended up identifying the exceedance.
So what are we waiting for DNR to tell us with those, or should the city be moving forward with those two sites?
Nothing much. Part of the reason for at least waiting now is all those samples are within the top 2 to 3 inches.
Okay.
So sampling during winter is not effective. So we have at least till spring to work on that. So once spring, if the DNR is going to take longer to review, we can have the proposal to investigate that area completed.
Okay.
Any questions from the committee? Yes, Alder.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the work that you did in the park and removed a lot of contaminated soil. I and other nearby residents got to see you a lot over that time, and you were always very responsive and helpful to people's questions, so thank you. With the samples that were brought up in the report, that my understanding is you're kind of waiting for the DNR to give some feedback on kind of responsibility and what happens next. Could we, and you can't see this unfortunately, I think, but you know where they are, I think. Ms. Polly, could we pull up the map for the committee? I think it's on page 76.
Sure.
Oh, and of the PDF, I should have clarified, 76 of the PDF. But so first, the ones that are along the property boundaries of the residential backyards, there's a few samples with exceedances there. You had mentioned in the report, and I looked at the photos from the sampling there, you had noted ash near the sample.
Yep.
Could you give some indication of why you thought that was significant?
Well, one of the potential sources of dioxins is incomplete combustion. So something like ash from potentially a grill, a fireplace, something like that could be contributing dioxins to at least a small area right around the ash. And after receiving the results, I went back up and looked right where I took the sample, and after it looked like potential yard waste on the park side of the fence. I poked around a little bit, removed some of it, and that's when I kind of saw what appeared to be ash. The photo didn't come through quite as clear as in person, the light gray color.
Thank you. And then was the ash collected and then analyzed by a lab?
No, not initially. It was just, like I said, an observation I made. There were some other waste found on the hill while we were doing the excavation. The black pots used for potting soil, an old wood ladder, stuff like that. That just noted, as I said, it was just something that stuck out. It was the only area I saw what looked like grass clippings, and then when I kind of started looking through it, saw more than just grass clippings.
Sure. So the reason I bring it up, and maybe I'm misunderstanding REI's position, perhaps it's not a position, but if the position is that that could be a contributing source to those exceedances and that dioxin level on the property boundary, then I'm a little confused as to why that wouldn't have been collected and kind of after talking to the city and DNR analyzed. And the reason for that would be so that the dioxin and furan congener profiles could be compared. You could compare the profile in the ash to the profile in the soil, and it would have been a scientifically valid way of drawing a conclusion. But I'm afraid barring that, it is not a scientific way of drawing any conclusion. There was a study once about a property where they were finding, dioxin in eggs and so they noticed some burning, and they thought, hey, maybe there's dispersion of ash, and then the chickens are eating it, and then it's absorbed and getting into the eggs. So what they did is they sampled the ash, got the congener profile, took the profile from the eggs, compared them to one another, and then had kind of a valid conclusion. But it sounds like in this case there was no sampling of the ash. Is that right?
No, I guess at that time I was looking more at defining it, so I wasn't worried about identifying potential additional sources. And as the soil sample is taken from 2 to 3 inches below that grade, the material's still there, so it can still be sampled. At more than likely, I have no clue of the age of it, so any weathering shouldn't significantly change its profile.
No, yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's kind of above my knowledge level there. But I think, yeah, that was one concern I saw in the report, an assertion without any scientific data. It would be kind of like sampling for PFAS in the soil and then seeing like a burger wrapper in a raincoat nearby and saying, hey, there's a burger wrapper and raincoat, I guess we'll stop soil definition now. It just wouldn't make a lot of sense, and it does not, I think, make sense at this point without some data to compare it to. And then historically, on that same note, Waleco had done an aerial deposition study where they took many samples from around the neighborhood. I think their intent was to get representative profiles of different possibilities, like maybe the former municipal incinerator, maybe some backyard burning.
Yep.
But what's interesting when you look at that data, and I think it shows the kind of precariousness of this type of kind of on-the-fly association. So on their sample N2-3, that was supposed to be a yard burning representative sample, and if we had a screen, I've got it with me, I would have showed you. But when you look at their yard burning samples, what you see in them is elevated TCDD in that yard burning sample. So one, I would just note, that was absent from the sample in question here, but I think not of the biggest consequence, because when you look at the photos of their sampling, I remember 4 or 5 years ago going back and looking at where they sampled N2-3. It was actually by like a foliage area with garden. So, I would bet that's probably from an herbicide, but they had taken the liberty of putting some arbitrary label on it. So I would just be concerned, especially when you've got it on the border of a backyard, playing it fast and loose with scientific analysis if there's no congener profiles to analyze and compare. And then I did have one question about the S29. That was the other one. So that's one you're waiting on from the DNR too, right?
Yes.
And in the report, you mentioned that the contamination in the park was apparently most of it from storm water that came through the culvert and dispersed into the park. Is that?
That's the, current theory based on just the concentrations from the outfall of the culvert. The DNR was initially considering the culvert to be this point source discharge, and is why the city was listed as the responsible party. And that S-29 would still have been taken in what would have historically more than likely been the depression that at least was right adjacent to that culvert. The property line and fence was 3 to 4 feet off the end of the culvert where that S-29 sample was. So there's been changes to topography, so it's hard to say exactly how that continued. But it was a lower spot than either side of it.
Sure. So the stormwater in that area, or the topography, it slopes down like west to east. The stormwater would flow in an eastward direction historically until they dug a massive hole there, apparently, for the retention pond. But historically, the stormwater was flowing east toward the park. Is that right?
That I do not know. I don't have any historic topography of that area that I've reviewed at this time. And that was partially why I put it up to the DNR to make the determination as it was on the property boundary with the park and, again, what was considered upgradient of what was initially identified by the DNR as the source area.
Okay. And what was west of the culvert historically? Was it like a house, a Kmart, industrial operations?
I would have to pull back up Sanborn maps to look at that. While I'm very familiar with this site, I've only done basic research on historic land use. I haven't, like I said, as the DNR determined the culvert to be, most of the attention has been on defining it and then remediating at least what was defined.
Sure. Well, if we had a projector, I could show you some images, and perhaps Mr. Lindman could help with this in the future. So what the city used to have on its mapping tool was 1974 aerial imagery. I don't know if you recall ever looking at that. It's pretty useful, yeah, to see historical stuff. Well, it does have indeed a great historical image of what was west of that culvert. So I think, and perhaps it's something we could send to the questions to Ms. Polly or to Mr. Lindman, just to make sure it's within the scope of the work. But I think what would be helpful would be to see, so the committee could see, or the council, what was there historically, and then to overlay your excavation and former culvert location over that 1974 data. Because when I did that, what it appeared to show was stacking of industrial materials immediately at the culvert opening. And then the 1974 aerial image showed what appeared to be discoloration or staining around of the soil around those stacked materials. So I guess I would be interested in seeing the overlay you've got here with the historical image, so we could see maybe how that relates to past activities. And just lastly, I wanted to say, as the older person, I think barring some conclusive congener profile that would indicate it was this or that, we've got some significant exceedances, in my opinion, on the border of a residential backyard. 3 residents on River Street have requested to me, as their older person, to have those yards tested to make sure this hasn't migrated into their backyards. It is on the border, so regular person, normal thought and request. And they've also requested that to DNR staff, at least a couple of them. So depending on how this unfolds, unless there's some dramatic new data, I would like to see that their concerns are recognized and that we make sure that this hasn't migrated into their backyards. But thank you for all your work, and it's a complex topic, and thank you for what you've done.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Thank you very, very much. Moving on to number 5 on your agenda, it's discussion and possible action in presentation of the 2023 year in review. And I'll turn that over to our Parks Director, Jamie.
All right. I'm sorry to Lou and Dawn, you've already heard this, but
That's okay.
I'm going to go through it again. So each year, I'll try to blow this up on the screen, but it's in front of you in your packets as well. Each year for the last, I think I started this 3 years ago, of going through and doing a summary of kind of what we've done for the year. There's a lot of words on the review pages, so I'm not going to read every single one. But we just put this out there to kind of show how busy we've been, what we've been working on, both city and county. Obviously, that's our department, with 44 full-time staff and about 150 seasonal staff that we have. Oh, I forgot to make that change. We have 37 city parks, 17 county parks, and only 10 county forests. So I have forests in there twice. I need to make that update. That was pointed out to me last week. So we have 3,400 acres of parkland total, and then 30,700 acres of county forest that we oversee. You'll see on this year's year in review, there's a lot of tree work. There's a lot of work that our tree crews have done, mainly in the city to deal with the emerald ash borer, a lot of removals, a lot of plantings, stump removals. We have done a big planting in Marathon Park where we took all the little seedling white pines that were growing on the side of the berm of the amphitheater, trying to think of what it's called, and we replanted them throughout the park. So you can see a lot of them are still doing well. We did lose a few, but it was a couple hundred that they were able to take off of that berm and replant throughout the park. We've added, a number of activities through our recreation programs. Our swimming lesson revenue continues to grow over last year's revenue. We offered over 200 swimming lesson classes for 673 students, and we've had wait lists, so as we have pool time available and staffing available, we'll increase that. We had a very successful year at Sylvan Hill, and I can give this during now or in the updates, but Sylvan Hill is still open. We do have both hills going on still. We're hoping we can push it through at least Sunday when it gets colder again, and then we'll have a season. And right now it's probably, from what I hear, it's faster than it's ever been because of this getting warmer during the day, and by the time that it's opened at night, it freezes and it becomes a very, very slick slide. So people are having fun. It's still open and we're still able to keep it going, which is probably the only major snow thing in the area other than Granite Peak. We have, we partnered like I said, recreation programs, added quite a few new things. On the county side, we replaced the big water main and lateral through Marathon Park. That was a huge project that we did this last year, and our timber sales continue to come in. That's above. We budget every year a net revenue of $305,000, so we did exceed that again, even though last year was hard for winter timber sales as well, because it got cold and then it got warm and then it got cold again. This year we're kind of in the same boat. It's too warm for many of our winter timber sales to happen, because the trucks will go in and they get stuck. And now some of the upper northern counties are putting road limits on. Marathon County road limits are not on yet, but that's something we watch too, because that stops any timber sales. Kind of going through specific projects and stuff that we had for the city and the county. A lot of, like I said, vegetation and tree plantings. We got the tot lot installed with the Community Development Block Grant at Worley Park, at this Lincoln tot lot there. We helped with the installation or the removal of the old wall that was at Athletic Park so that the woodchucks could put in the new video board. We continue to partner with the fire department for the pop-up splash pads. We worked with the Wausau School District. You'll find this kind of interesting, is whenever we take down our trees in the city, such as our ash trees, or any good wood, we have been giving those to the Wausau School District wood shop class. They bought a wood miser a few years ago. They make the trees into boards, and then they've been building stuff for us. So this year they built new kiosks for a number of our boat launches, which we're still installing. Some of them, Schofield was the first one to be installed. But a couple of students came in when they were installing that one. It's just to replace the old kiosks that we have. So we have a great partnership with the school district there. We're still working on Oak Island restroom. If you've been past Oak Island, you saw the new restroom go up. We're building that one in-house. So that one should be ready to go by the spring. And then we're working on some paths. We had a great partnership again this year with Highway Department and with Public Works Department on some small paving projects that they can do in-house for us rather than contracting them out. So we were able to complete some ADA paths to the new playgrounds at Riverside and 10th Street. So that's kind of the city projects. County, I won't go through all of those, but you can read a lot there. A lot of it is recreation programs. We kind of added that on the county side since that was something we didn't really have anything of. We were able to put in some new docks at some of our parks. Our kayak launch, self-serving kayak launch was installed at DC Everest Park and was very successful, so we'll continue that for the next 5 years. We got grant funding from the Wausau Marathon County Parks and Recreation Foundation for that entire contract for that system that's out there. We put up a new restroom at DC Everest as well. That one we had the contractors do. I think we're doing a much better job at Oak Island without doing it in-house. And then updating some plans. So again, our camping revenue for the county was up. Last year was up 9% over 2021. We're still up, but only 1.5% over 2022. So they continue to be used. And then, well, any questions on, I guess, our year in review? Kind of went through that pretty quickly.
Oh, I don't see any questions from the committee.
All right, should I move on to the next one?
Yeah, number 6 on the agenda is discussion and possible action on the 2024 Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department work plan, and I'm going to turn that over to Jamie as well.
So, and then after we do the year in review, we put together our work plan. Obviously, this is not everything that we have planned for 2024, but these are our major projects. I don't even have listed on here our day-to-day work, which is pretty extensive in and of itself, but we have a number of projects on our work plan again this year. A couple of county CIP projects that were approved for us using ARPA dollars is to do a renovation of Eastgate Hall. And we're going to put a dump station in at Dells of Eau Claire because we are not meeting code there with the new code changes for campgrounds. And we're replacing the septic at 9 Mile because it also does not, it's 25 years old and it has not the capacity that it was meant to have when it was put in. And then last year we had the projects of the playgrounds at these 2 parks that we didn't quite get in last year, so it's a carryover. They're ordered, they'll just be installed. Some smaller projects we've got to work on is to complete our DC Everest Park. We're hooking that up to city sewer and water. That will be our only county park other than Marathon Park that's hooked up to city sewer and water. Some things we got coming for the 400 block and River Life that we are working on. The concession building, you'll see if you've gone past that building, the back fence is temporary. There's a chain link fence on it. That wall had to come down. We've been having issues with the HVAC unit since we put it in. Thought it was a warranty issue or a machine or a unit issue. We had 2 different contractors come out besides the installer, so 3 that looked at it. The unit is fine, but apparently it's in a pretty small space from what it should be in, and wasn't getting the proper airflow. So 2 contractors told us the same thing. One is put up a new fence that's more airflow, so we have a new fence that will be put up with slats in it that will allow for access but allow for the airflow versus the actual wall that had that smart siding on that was there before. And then we did raised the ductwork so that there's more room above the unit to get that air out. So we're hoping that that fixes the issue. But that's work at the concession building at River Life. And then the jumper jets, that's also something we've had issues with since they were installed. They don't flow to the grates properly, and so they flood out. They all run back to the one that's closest to the river, and they flood that one out, and then that triggers the whole system. So this is a warranty claim that we're working with the company on. They're currently still working on it and going to provide us with some options of how we can change it. But one change we will make to this when we make those repairs is we got our water bills for the city parks this year, just like everybody else in the city. And they're extensive. And we didn't even run these Leaper jets last year, and our water bill were really high prior. So one of the things we're going to look at is, right now, this was designed to have to be treated. It's water that comes in, it has to be treated in a tank, and then it just goes out to the river. And it has to be treated because, or dechlorinized, because it's too close to the river. We would like to put in a circulating system, so we're reusing the water and not wasting it into the river, because we think that can save the city a lot of money. That is something that really should be done. Same on that same line, we're going to put a push button at our fountain at the 400 block, because that too is water that was designed not to recirculate but go right down the drain, and it runs constantly in the summer. So we're going to put a push button on there to reduce the water usage there, as well as put rain gauges on all of our irrigation systems and stuff like that to try to reduce that amount, because we're paying the same for city parks as you're paying for your residential water bills. So, okay.
No, go ahead.
Then keep going on. We're working on some ideas for our department. We need to reconsolidate down with our crews at Party Street, because the county wants us to vacate. Well, I think the city does too, wants us to vacate 212 so that area can be redeveloped. So working on that, as well as our ice arena feasibility study is in the process right now. We'll get that back. It'll be finalized in about June to know what we're moving forward with that. I'll skip over the timber sale stuff. That's mainly county forest, but good information there. Other projects we're working on is we'll continue the ash removal. I have on here install AEDs and save stations. We'll be doing a presentation to either the Parks Committee or the City Council as a whole, myself and Jared Thompson from the Fire Department. This is something we're currently working on. The Fire Department would like to become a heart-safe community. To do that, I believe you need 15% of your population to be CPR, not certified, but knowledgeable, to be able to do hands-on CPR. So they'll be doing an initiative to help get people trained at different events and stuff like that. But also, I have been looking into getting an AED on River Life Trail, as well as at the sports complex, by request of users, as well as different groups that we work with. And with this process, with the fire department, we are going to increase that to trying to install 4 to begin with. The other 2 would be one at the 400 block and one at Athletic Park in the community playground area. So we're currently filling out a community foundation grant for these 4 stations. And as we know more, then we'll bring that to the council. And Jared will give amazing talk about why these are important, and what the survival rate currently is for cardiac arrest in the city of Wausau. So you don't want to have a cardiac arrest until these AEDs are in, and then you want to be next to it when it happens. Some city small projects, we're continuing to work on Stewart Park, wall cap and tuck pointing. We got some repairs at Athletic Park as well. Some ball field issues. We have some regular slide restoration. That's just a regular maintenance item for the pools. I hope to go out for bid here shortly for the skate park. All that's completed. I'm working with engineering for those final bid documents. We'll complete the restroom. And then another CIP project that was approved was to put some bollards up or something up along 4th Street in front of the Grand on the 400 block for some further safety measures. The other city item on here is the Athletic Park Clubhouse review. That clubhouse is in desperate need of some upgrades. It does not meet ADA currently, and if the Woodchucks organization is wanting to bring in their softball team, like that's in the plans, we need to look at what that takes to renovate that, and then figure out where that funding comes from, because the ADA issue is a city issue. The rest of it will be how we design it to fit the teams, and what we're going to do there will be something we discuss with the organization as well. So that is a snapshot, in addition to quite a few little projects, and then our day-to-day work for 2024.
Any questions for Jamie? None? I'm going to just add that the Water Commission will be real happy that the city is also trying to save water, because they felt that if we're going to put out information to the residents of the city on how to save water, that the city certainly should be working on saving water as well. So the Park Commission's real happy to hear some of those suggestions, and I know we'll follow through on them. Moving on to number 7 under the educational items. Under A, we talk about some of the parks, and at Brockmeyer Park, under JoJo's Jungle, they're working with a volunteer group on plant replacement and design with the work to be done in spring of 2024. Repairs are also being made to the ball field shed door. Oak Island, the new restroom construction continues, and if you haven't driven past Oak Island, it's a beautiful building. The exterior is mostly complete, and staff will begin to work on the interior, installing fixtures and partitions. Kaiser Pool, contracting company Fisher continues work on slide stairs and repairs to play features. These are planned small projects. And to me, I look at this and I say it's Schofield, and that's how I'm going to pronounce it. The boat launch kiosk is installed, and this was a joint project between our department and the Wausau School District. Schulenberg Pool, contracting company, Fisher continues work on the play feature slide repair. 400 block, ice rink was up and running. However, with the unseasonably warm temperatures, the rink is now closed, and I understand that they wanted to get the warming shelter off of there before it gets too muddy and they can't remove it. And the 400 block this year was the only outdoor rink that was able to be built this year. Sylvan Hill, as Jamie said, tubing is still up and running. Maybe we all need to go out there and try it. Both hills are available. We're watching the conditions of the hills daily as the warm temperatures and rain are melting the snow. We plan to keep at least one hill open as long as possible, as Jamie said, and staffing says it's been a bit of challenging at times. Snow removal, oh, I don't want to hear that word. The crews are completing snow removal and bringing it at various locations as needed, and by looking around, we can see that it's melting beautifully.
Yeah, we haven't been doing much snow removal this winter.
Any other questions or comments at this point? I will move on to number 8 for future items. Anybody have any future items that they would like to see on the agenda for March?
One I'm trying to work on with our city attorney and our county corporation council is the contract for services that the county's supposed to have with the city since 1974 that we haven't had. So
Okay.
it was put together in 1992 by the previous director. I put it together, re-upped it last year, and both of them are looking at it. So I do plan to bring that forward as soon as they're ready, just to clarify and be clear on, you know, what is expected of our department to take care of the city parks. I mean, we've been doing it for 50 years and it's been going well, but this is something that was supposed to be done per that resolution back then.
Okay. Number 9 on the agenda is our next meeting date, and that will be March 4th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. in the council chambers. Now to everybody's favorite part, adjournment. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Motion made by Alder Larson, second by Alder Watson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Meeting adjourned. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you.
Yes.
Short and sweet.
Yes, thanks for all the hard work you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, that came up today.